there, folks. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you can make it, and welcome to our series on getting to know your Stay Fresh freeze dryer a little bit better. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to warm your trays. So why would you want to warm your trays before freeze drying? Well, this particular feature really only applies to those of you who do candy, because there are certain types of candy that freeze dry really well when they start the process relatively soft. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to warm the trays before the freeze drying cycle begins. As of right now, that particular feature doesn't exist in candy mode, but no worries, because I'm going to show you how to do it manually. I have heard from Stay Fresh themselves that there might be an update coming out relatively soon that will incorporate a warm tray option. But as of right now, we're going to have to do it manually. I do want to say that this particular process is very specific, so don't skip a single second, and be sure to stick around at the very end, as we not only cover how to start the process, but we also cover how to finish the process. Let's get started.
All right, so this is the first screen you look at when you turn on your freeze dryer, and in order to preheat your trays, you have to click the Functions option. Basically, I'm going to show you how to freeze dry candy manually. We're going to activate each one of the options as we need them. The first thing we have to do, though, is turn on the compressor. So we're going to click the compressor button, and now it's on. And I want you to notice the temperature. Notice it says 65 Fahrenheit. Before we move on to heating the trays, we want the trap temperature to be at -20. And that normally takes anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So once that gets down to -20, we're going to move on to the next step, which is to activate the heaters. All right, we're back. 11 minutes have passed, and notice that our trap temperature is at -25, which is great because we only need it to be at -20. The next thing we need to do is turn on the shelf heaters. In order to do that, we need to actually set the target shelf temperature, and that's what TS stands for. So that little button next to TS, we're going to click it and type in the temperature we want it to be at. 150 is the max. That's in Fahrenheit. Now, it's important for you to know that at any time throughout this entire process, you can change that temperature. So let's say you wanted to preheat the trays to 150, but you wanted to freeze dry at 130. You can go in, click that button, and change the temperature, no problem, because each one of these steps are being done manually. So once you have the target temperature set, there's a couple ways to activate the heater. The first way is to press that heater off button to turn the heater on. Once you do that, your shelf temperature will get to your target temperature pretty quick. The only problem here is that once your shelf temperature gets to your target temperature, that heater will automatically cut off. And that's primarily because it's used as a function test. And so I'm going to show you the second way to do it, and that's to press the TS button. The TS button will turn on the heater as well, and it will get to your target temperature and maintain that target temperature. The only problem here is that it's not as quick as if you were to do it the first way. So here's what I like to do. I like to activate that top button first, which gets my shelf temperature to my target temperature pretty quick. And then once we get pretty close, I'll just hit the TS button so that the heater will stay on and just keep it at whatever I set it at. I think the whole thing took about 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes have passed, and the shelf temperature is now 147. We're super close to our target. If I don't do anything, the heater will automatically turn off once we get to our target temperature. And I don't want that to happen. And so right here, what I do is I just come on down to that TS button, I press it, and there we go. And now the shelf will stay at 150 until I deactivate it. And the reason I like doing this is because it happens pretty quick. But like I said in the beginning, you can start off by pressing TS, and it will get you to your target shelf temperature. It's just going to take a little bit longer. And so it just really comes down to how much time you have to check on the machine, press the buttons when you need to move on to the next step. Because 100% of this is manual. You have to physically do it. All right, so now that we are at our shelf temperature, we're going to load our trays. For this batch, we're going to be running some Tootsie Rolls. My Tootsie Rolls are already fairly soft, so they should soften up even more while we warm our trays. We're going to double lock the door. We also need to make sure that the fresh air valve is closed. There we go. And then, of course, check your drain valve. Make sure that's closed as well. Excellent. All right, so now that that's done, let's head back over to the screen and take a look at where it says 0 minutes, where my finger is. This little box lets you know how long your trays have been preheating. So when it says 1 minute, it just means that your trays have been heating at 150 degrees for 1 minute. Let's take a look at our candy so that you can see what that looks like. And my candy was actually pretty soft going in, which is ideal for Tootsie Rolls, but this is what it looks like at the beginning of the process. We're going to let these preheat for 19 to 20 minutes, and when we look at our screen, 19 minutes have now passed. That's just literally telling us that your trays have been at 150 degrees for 19 minutes. Remember, this is a manual process, so each step has to be activated manually. Let's look at our Tootsie Rolls. 19 minutes later, they are very soft. They've almost turned into little discs, which is exactly what you want when it comes to Tootsie Rolls. All right, so it's now time to move on to the next step. One thing that I do want to add right here is that it's advisable to not preheat your trays for more than 20 minutes. So I try to keep the total preheat time to below 20 minutes, and that's going to help protect the compressor. For most candies, it's not going to be an issue, but Tootsie Rolls do tend to benefit from these longer preheat times because they really puff up well when they're nice and soft. All right, so we're at that 20-minute mark. Let's turn on the pump. That's the next step. Now that the pump is on, let's open the motorized ball valve. And there you go. Everything that needs to be on is now on. What you've basically done is run candy mode, but in a manual format, and that's allowed you to preheat the shelf temperatures, which some candies benefit from that. Let me show you what our Tootsie Rolls look like real quick. And if you guys want to see a full-length video on what we did, beginning to end with the Tootsie Rolls, let me know in the comment section. I'll be sure to get that up and running for you. No problem there. But they puff up nice and beautifully. Those look absolutely amazing. This is the end of our process. Notice we've been running for 218 minutes, which is plenty of time for Tootsie Rolls. 3 hours is kind of what I like to target. Shelf temperature stayed at 150 Fahrenheit, which is to be expected. The vacuum pulled was 109 millitorr. Beautiful vacuum. No problem here. Now it's time to turn everything off. And I'm going to show you a very specific way of how you have to deactivate everything. But first, let's take a look at our Tootsie Rolls as they're finished. This is the end result of our Tootsie Rolls being preheated for 20 minutes inside of our Stay Fresh freeze dryer. Absolutely beautiful. They're going to be nice and crispy and airy. Okay, let's turn everything off. The absolute best way to do this so you don't damage your freeze dryer is to deactivate everything in the reverse order. Okay, so the very first thing we need to deactivate is the valve. There we go. The next thing we need to deactivate is the pump, right? We're working in reverse at this point. Next, we need to deactivate the shelf heater. So we click the TS. Now that's off. And then finally, we need to deactivate the compressor. And that's the most appropriate way to turn all of these functions off so that you don't cause any damage to your freeze dryer or its components.
All right, guys, that's how you warm the trays in your Stay Fresh freeze dryer. In a later video, I'll show you how to do the Tootsie Rolls so that they come out perfect every time. And just remember, when you begin the manual operation, you want to end it in the exact reverse order. All right, so just to recap, to begin the process, you are going to turn on the compressor, warm the trays, turn on the vacuum pump, and then open the ball valve. To finish the process, you're going to do that in reverse order. Close the ball valve, turn off the vacuum pump, turn off the warming trays, turn off the compressor, and that's how you successfully do it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Be sure to check the description box below. We just started a Facebook group for people who have Stay Fresh freeze dryers or people who are interested in getting Stay Fresh freeze dryers, where we cover all kinds of tips and tricks and information like this in the group. Be sure to join. If you want any information on the Stay Fresh freeze dryer, I'll put a link in the description box below. Be sure to use the coupon code 2GUYS to save a couple bucks off your purchase. If you found today's video to be helpful or entertaining in any way, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not currently subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Thanks a lot for being here. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.